Deltarune's first chapter came out a good 3 years after Undertale took the world over by storm and presented itself as not quite a sequel and not really a prequel either, but an alternative take on this world and these characters, not much unlike a lot of the fan-made AUs the mid to late 2010s were fraught with. Now, this was my introduction to the franchise, the main reason for that being it was free, and I was like 13. 13-year-old me was an interesting little chap, and by that I mean, like not at all. The only really interesting thing about that piece of shit was just how goddamn interesting he was. I think I might have mentioned this when you visited a few weeks ago. Maybe not. It's hard to remember sometimes, but 2017 to 2019-ish is the only era of my life I feel any sort of nostalgia, any sort of warmth towards. And it's not because those were necessarily good years for me, because, well, they weren't. But they were the years that I finally started to grow into my own, so to speak. The years I finally got something I had spent the rest of my empty, soulless life not feeling like I truly had. The years I finally had found something worth living for. See, I had known up to this point that I wanted to make games, but it wasn't something I'd ever really considered an actual possibility for me. It was just a childish dream straggling around in the back of my mind somewhere. Not unlike an NFL fan wanting to make it as an all-star player, or a comic book nerd wanting superpowers, or even this little fucker wanting a world championship. I didn't really have anything going on in my life, so I spent most of my time online, which that really surprised you? And my personal favorite game is Super Paper Mario, and I've started seeing a lot of people comparing the antagonist of that game to this newfangled Jevil guy from Deltarune, so when I checked it out, I noticed, hey, this game looks a lot like those Mario and Luigi RPGs from my childhood, and I adore those games, so since this is free, I should actually try it out. And I haven't recovered since. Now, this is the game that sort of made me realize, hey, it really is possible for just a handful of people on their own to make something great, to make a difference. And I owe it pretty much everything for that. I still look back at Deltarune Chapter 1 to try to figure out what exactly it was about it that made it appeal so much to me. And I think I know how to put it into words now. Despite the similarities to those Mario and Luigi RPGs, or any of the other dozens of works that influenced Deltarune, I had never played a game anything like this before, and it just nailed a lot of what I love to see in a game. Kick-ass retro-feeling art style and premise, in-depth and charming characters, incredible music, intriguing, engrossing lore, and I think most of all, one hell of a heavenly atmosphere. Man, the tone and ambience of Chapter 1 just cannot be beat. A lot of that has to do with the game's limited visuals and mechanics, I think, and a lot of that still has to do with the god-tier music and writing, along with the way it uses a lot of Undertale's characters and tropes, but twists and tweaks them up just enough to make something totally new out of them, and just all the vague mystery it sets up. It was, I don't know, it was special. Not to mention, I just really like the battle system here. It's like if Undertale and Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga had a really, really cool baby, one everyone on the schoolyard wanted to be bestos with. Wait, do babies go to school? But the best part to me is the tension point system. The game actively rewards you for getting closer to bullets while avoiding them just enough, which is just a great risk versus reward mechanic, and added so much to the ambiguity of this world. I really can't imagine what it's going to be like for new fans in the future who can play the entirety of this game within a week. Is that jealousy? I mean, maybe a little, but I kind of do feel like the ride, the wait, the anticipation for what's next is a huge communal part of this experience of being a fan of this game. I mean, that's something even referenced in-game a few times. I don't know. But something I always found very, very interesting about this game was just how apparent it was with its influences, with what it took inspiration from. Even more so than Undertale did, and that's something people like to rib the game on, how supposedly unoriginal the story, or at least the plot was, which at face value, sure. Deltarune sees two kids end up in an alternate world, smack dab in the middle of a prophecy of light and dark. One of the kids is the weird, emo, outcast loner. The other one's the mean one who becomes less mean, trademark by the end of the story. Both guided by a mysterious sage who may or may not be hiding things from them and from us. Wow, groundbreaking stuff, right? But I always felt like saying that was so downright disingenuous. Like, yeah, that plot structure's been used before. Hell, pieces of it is almost identical to Undertale, so when you look at it, it's bare. But that's only when you suck every bit of originality and charm and character away from what makes Deltarune what it is.
There's this thing people love to do to make a work of art look bad by dumbing it down, tweaking it to something it never was, just to say, oh wow, look at it, it's just like this thing, isn't that so original? You can take any movie, any game, any show, someone has done it with that, and Deltarune is a great example.
I mean, it has always been linked really closely to Amori, and for obvious reasons. They both started production at around the same time, time and are both pixelated indie RPGs heavily inspired by Earthbound. Hell, each game's creators contributed music and artwork respectively to each other's games, which is honestly pretty cool. Yeah, considering both games' weird-ass release formats, they've sort of always been compared to each other. A lot of the characters seem pretty similar, the premise of each game seems pretty similar, hell, even the stories as a whole seem pretty similar, but saying that just doesn't work because there's no real merit to doing that, to tearing apart any story and saying it's essentially the same as another, because these games are so obviously incredibly different, just like most works that just so happen to share some tropes, even if that was an intentional thing. And that's part of the magic of Deltarune I think I've found myself really attracted to. I mean, it and Undertale both took tropes and ideas from stories done many times over, and still were able to build something new and beautiful from those ashes, just like all great stories do, but with a much deeper narrative voice, with this seemingly inherent knowledge that this is something really great, really special. There's not a hint of doubt, an ounce of insecurity in any aspect of these games, and that's something more stories could really use. And that's what Deltarune's really all about at its deepest. See, Chapter 1's dark world revolved around playing cards and toys and board games and other similar playthings. It was clear that at the very least, some meta-narrative about entertainment, about our relationship with it, about escapism was being established, a story was being told about art, about what its purpose is, about how it imitates and mirrors life, how there truly is a value to imagination, and what the extent of that can look like. And I don't think any character encapsulates that idea any better than Susie does, with an S. Each of these chapters sort of seem to latch onto one main character and explore at length their personas at their core, what makes them tick, what makes them who they are, and what can make them better. Better at handling their problems, better at just being people, what have you. And despite the fact that Chris is seemingly at least the game's main protag, Chapter 1 unequivocally belongs to Susie. She's introduced to us as, well, that character. She's rough, she's crass, she's a bit of an ass, and everyone's afraid of her because she's scary as shit. And she's mirrored in the dark world by this absolute goof, by Lancer, the evil Chaos King's son who's about as scary as a bag of marshmallow gummy worms. And these two knuckle chucks get along like way too well. And it's funny because Susie tries like way too hard to be this cold, tough as nails creature, and that is juxtaposed by this absolute buffoon who, over time, you see Susie kind of start acting like, and it's not because his personality like rubs off on her or anything, no. It's because this is who Susie really is, this uncaring, mean-spirited entity. It's nothing more than a mere act, a front, a mask she puts on as a defense mechanism from everyone else due, in part to her inability to just fit in from the lack of acceptance around her. Like Lancer's relationship, or lack thereof, with his dear old dad, I've always interpreted as a mirror of some sort to Susie's relationship, or lack thereof, with her own parental figures, whoever they may be. But through Lancer, through this world, through interactions and growing bonds with Chris and Rouse even, Susie doesn't change per se, she just allows herself to be who she actually is. And maybe it's just my own personal experience or whatever, but I find that when people allow you to be who you really are, when they accept you, you end up liking those people a lot more than anyone else. And that's what the dark world, that's what Chris and Rouse and Lancer provide Susie with, a chance to be real, a chance to be genuine, a chance to build connections. And that's the true reason for her change here, all culminating with her, in the end, quite literally standing up to the very personification of her facade in the Spade King. And it's not a total 180 either. She doesn't completely change the character or anything. She's still crude, she's still a punk, but you get to see her as more honest self. It's really great because the game keeps bringing up how kind, how hopeful and optimistic and confident Susie is and grows to be. But they don't go and turn her into this gentle, hyper-feminine character or anything. No, she stays true to herself, and that's important. That's one of the best things about Deltarune's release structure to me, the fact that over the years we get to sort of see Susie grow as we grow with her in a way.